Hello, today I'm out here in our wonderful greenhouse in the seed house where everything starts, and I was just thinking about multiplication. You know, we all want to multiply. There's something deep down inside of us that says you need to be getting on it. You know, multiply yourself, multiply your family, multiply your finances. Do something in life, right? 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8. But multiplication can be tough sometimes when there seems to be no opportunities, or if we take on the wrong mentality. You know, multiplication sometimes requires that we go down before you go up. Right now I'm multiplying some basil plants. Now I could plant seed, but you know, one of the really cool things about basil is that it will reroot itself. All I have to do is cut a piece, and all the DNA is in that basil plant. I stick it in the ground and it will automatically reroot. Now I've cut a few plants here. I got a few trimmings, and so this reminds me, you know, if you're wanting to multiply your business, multiply your efforts, multiply your time, multiply a church, right? 1 to 2. Take a look at this nice little branch. It was sitting on the great big plant, and the plant is just gorgeous and beautiful. But when I cut that branch, I sent it into crisis mode. This plant has just a short amount of time now to figure out what to do to try to save itself. Have you ever had the Lord do something like that? Cut you and put you in crisis mode? There's a reason. It's called multiplication. He's planning to transplant you, to replant you, to do something that's going to require crisis, change, mass change, pull back, and reroot. So this plant right now has got lots of beautiful basil leaves, but look what I have to do in order to get this plant to reroot. I've got to take all of these leaves off of this thing. Why? They are in the way now. These leaves are huge, they're beautiful, but they take a lot of energy, and I don't have a root system on this plant to supply this thing, and so I have got to now get rid of everything but the basic necessities. Just a few little leaves. This one may be too big. It'll probably make it. But now I've got a stem and an ugly group of just little baby leaves. And look at this. I'm going to stick this stem now right down into some dry dirt. This thing is in crisis. It's saying, what do I do? It doesn't even have roots now in its new location. It's going to have to rethink, redevelop, and start building roots. It has to change its food intake. It has to change all the dynamics of its ability and its capacity in order to save itself. Once it gets some roots coming out, I'm going to give it some water and some nutrition. When I do that, oh, it's going to be happy. They're going to say, oh, some immediate satisfaction, a little bit of water to keep me alive for another day. But then the rerooting takes place, and in about 10 days, there's going to be massive roots underground, and this little seedling in 10 to 14 days is going to be ready to replant in another location, and it'll grow to a full adult plant. I don't even have to worry about seeds any longer, not with basil. Now here's a basil plant. This guy here, look, he has already started seeding out. He thinks he's done with his life, right? And maybe he's retired. He says, here's my retirement. When a basil plant starts seeding, it starts preparing to die. So the seeds fall on the ground, starts a new cycle, and the plant dies. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to remind it, no, oh, you're not retired. Sorry, not today. We're starting a brand new venture. So I'm getting rid of all the seeds. Even this one here is starting to retire right here. And I'm going to pull that back and say, no, not today. I'm going to trim him back. I'm going to take all those big leaves off and leave him just with enough solar panels to where the sun and him can get along and do his thing. Look at that. I kind of got a double here. Now I'm going to set him in the ground and transplanted. He's going to start all over again. And you know what? Out of one basil plant, I can get anywhere from 30 to 40 new basil plants. Now that's multiplication. It's crisis mode whenever, here's a guy retiring, right? So whenever you say, no, you're not retiring. Oh my gosh, what do you mean I'm not retiring? I was planning on retirement. No, you're going back into service. Now here's one here. I'm going to break him off and we'll use him here in just a moment. I'm going to take off all the extras. because your little transplant can't handle the extras right now. You need a couple solar panels for the sun. You need a nice deep stem going down into the ground, and you need to get in crisis mode and start developing a new root system. And here's the little guy that came right off of him. Maybe this is your son or daughter, right? And even your son and daughter has been pruned back. There we go. A nice little plant. Not much going on there, but I'll tell you what, in about 10 days, there's going to be a whole lot going on there. And these little plants, though they went through crisis, they are going to produce now 30, 60, 100 times what they could have done on the big mama plant. So take that to heart. Maybe you need to get out of mama plant. Maybe you need to ask God just to cut you right on out of there and transplant you somewhere where you can start multiplying yourself. Instead of you being a branch, how about you become the plant? What do you think of that? Now see this guy here, man, he's hurting. He's been cut off for about 15 minutes. So I need to get him in the ground, get him some water. But what's killing him? I'll tell you what's killing him right now is all this energy that is needed to supply these leaves. And you know what? A lot of times we get a whole lot of stuff built around us that requires a lot of energy, a lot of roots. It requires a lot of cash, a lot of attention, a lot of time. And so sometimes we need to trim that back. You know, Jesus told the rich young ruler, he said, you want to get trimmed back and really be a multiplication tool, an instrument for the kingdom? Sell everything you got and come follow me, and I'll show you. All right? So in other words, he said, trim all those leaves off that big old plant of yours, cut yourself down, and let's get you rerouted, and I'll show you how not to be a branch on a tree, not to be a member in a church, not to be an employee in a business. I'll show you how to become the business. I'll show you how to start a church. I'll show you how to start a new family. Well, there is 32 plants that I just pulled off of one basil plant. And in about 10 days, these boys are going to be happy as can be. And in just a second here, I'll show you some that I transplanted about 10 days ago, and I'll show you how happy those boys are to give you a little shot of what the future looks like. Okay, so what we're looking at now, I've got some of these little guys potted. These are the little plants that, just like what you saw me doing, transplanting, they were hurting, they were sad, they were in shock, but now they are as happy as can be 10 days later. This is the miracle of the kingdom of God. It's the miracle of basil. Not all plants will do this, but man, when you can find a plant that does, and just keep your plant alive, you've got basil or you've got plants for the rest of your life. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pull this guy out just for a second. Let's take a look and see what's going on underneath. Look at this. Look at all of those roots that have formed to keep this plant alive. Now you'll see I left a whole lot more leaves on here to really put these boys in shock, and they made it. They survived. So I'm going to put this back down in the ground now, give him a little more time, and they'll be ready to transplant. Anytime I want right now, I can actually transplant them because they've got a root structure and they're happy. Isn't that amazing? Imagine if you were to be cut from the branch and to be transplanted in another location. In that crisis mode, you will develop roots. You will learn a new system, a new way, and you will become the plant just like the one you were pulled from. Why? Because the DNA of the kingdom of God is inside of you. Jesus said, the kingdom of God is near. Then he said, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And then he looked at his disciples and said, let me share a little secret with you. The kingdom of heaven is in you.